Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0. So, I've been gone for about a week, and I apologize for that, but really, between my being in Pullman and my being at KomoriCon and my computer thinking I'm under some sort of terrorist attack, making a video wasn't exactly in the cards for me. Pun totally intended, by the way. However, something interesting happened while I was at KomoriCon this weekend. First of all, I totally forgot I had this. This happened. This is one of my 18 signed Junk Warriors, or no, 18 Ultra Junk Warriors, 3 of which are now signed, including this one. This one is signed by Cassandra Lee Morris, who played Yubel, or who voice acted Yubel. She also did Leo and Luna in 5D, so that was pretty cool. But more importantly than my Ultra Junk Warriors, and I never thought I'd say that, YCS Toronto happened this weekend, and I normally don't do a whole lot of tournament analysis or tournament commentary. However, I think that this one is really important to talk about because it has, it's a big event early on in a slow format, which is especially important because these formats turn out crazy sometimes. Take last year at this exact same time of year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the ARG's pie chart of the top 16. I'm going to talk about these decks and how they differ from their versions before the format, because many of these are repeat decks from the last format. And then I'm going to talk about how that affects side decking and maybe a little bit about market prices. So why don't I go down the top 16? So we had 1 Fire Fist deck, 3 Mermail decks, 1 Infernity, 1 Blackwing, 2 Prophecy, and 8 Dragon Rulers. Now, I was totally wrong about the Dragon Rulers. Before the format changed, or before the format actually changed, I was saying the Dragon Rulers were going to be incredibly slow this format. They weren't going to be able to keep up. And, like, people were saying, of course, that this is a slow format so they can keep up, but I was thinking that they were especially slow. However, I have been proven wrong. So 2 of those Dragon Rulers were actually Dragoonity decks. However, at least Patrick Hoban's Dragoonity deck was primarily Dragon Rulers anyway, so I figured I'd lump that in. Then there were 2 of them that were just pure Dragon decks, and then 4 Dragon Plants. So the first thing I noticed, besides the massive number of dragons, which, by the way, I am extremely disappointed in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community for seeing all these skill drain Dragon Ruler decks pop up and having nobody take the chance to name it How to Drain Your Dragon, which is a pun, an allusion, and an innuendo all put into one snappy title. I mean, come on, guys, Magic players take more creative opportunities than this. But I digress. Lots and lots of Dragon Rulers. The other thing I see is there's only 1 Fire Fist player, only one Infernity player, and then we've got the Blackwing player. So the Fire Fist, I think, is actually indicative of the rest of this format. I think that the Fire Fist getting only 1 slot in the top 16, as opposed to, I thought, maybe 2. I'd have to look back at the top 32, but I don't think they did particularly well during this tournament, which is kind of foreboding for Fire Fist for the rest of the fall format, because they're one of those decks that isn't going to be getting any more support, and if they run out of steam now, they're not going to be able to do very well for the rest of the format. So I think that 1 Fire Fist deck is kind of what you're going to see a lot more of in the future at bigger events. Like maybe the bigger regionals, you're not going to be seeing as many Fire Fist decks. At your locals, I mean, they're probably going to see a few. I was amazed to not see any Fire King players in the top 32. Just because I actually thought that it was a decent deck, and apparently I was just totally wrong. So RJ is not on his best predicting mode this week. However, the next thing I noticed was only the 1 Infernity player, which I think might be indicative of the rest of the format. It's really difficult to tell with Infernities because they are such a volatile deck when it comes to, you know, how they do against other decks, etc. I think the 1 Blackwings, people are making a lot of totally unnecessary comparisons and kind of untrue comparisons between the decks this format and the decks last format. People were saying that at this tournament, dragons are like wind-ups, and like Blackwings are like gladiator beasts. And I think that if Blackwings are anything like any other deck in the past, they're more like what are they called? Grand Soil Psychics, where people thought that Psychics were a decent deck and that Grand Soil was a good card, and then the deck itself did really well, and then you were going to see a lot of it, and it was going to be really hyped until the end of the next tournament, where they were going to have they were going to have a significant following. There were going to be a lot of people playing it. I think that's going to be the same thing with these Black Wings. You're going to see a lot of people playing it in the next tournament, and then people are going to generally have figured it out. With Gladiator Beasts, people just say that they're going to be really good. They like top one regional, and then everybody realizes that they can beat Gladiator Beasts pretty easily. The 3 Mermail decks I think is really cool. I think that this is probably the part where I'm going to be talking about siding and deck building for the future. I think that between Dragon Rulers and Mermails, Mermails actually have the better chance going into the side deck, because Dragon Rulers, once they lost the babies, people are comparing dragons to windups, but windups in the fall format last year only lost 1 card. Dragons lost an entire engine, which means that dragons, instead of windups, which had the field basically cleared for them, and they only lost they went down to 1 copy of 1 card. Dragon Rulers lost an entire engine, which means they are going to lose hard to the cards that before were an inconvenience to them. Things like Imperial Iron Wall and Goes in Match are devastating to dragons now without the babies around, because it loses speed, and especially with Imperial Iron Wall, you just can't summon the dragons anymore if you have Imperial Iron Wall on the board. So dragons are going to be losing harder to the side deck than they did before, which means that you actually have a bigger chance of seeing rogue decks come around. Grand Soil Psychics are going to be exempt this time, because they can't do Imperial Iron Wall. They can use Goes in Match, which is a significant disadvantage for them. But the reason why I think that Mermails are actually going to hold their place in the top tier much more consistently than Dragons is just because they can use both of those big side deck cards against Dragons. They have the power to use that Imperial Iron Wall. A lot of them even side 3 of them. They can use Goes in Match. It works for them. And so I think that Mermails actually have a better side deck available to them than Dragons do against Mermails. This is my cat once again, Shadows. Nice to meet him again. Alright, so that's my thought on Mermails versus Dragons. I think we're going to see a lot more from Mermails this format than people think that we are. But until we settle down a little bit, that is yet to be determined, of course. Boojins had a total flop at this YCS. I don't even know if they got into the top 32. I don't think that they did. People were expecting a lot out of them, and they didn't really do much. And that's the thing. I wish I could see the deck list of the Boojin players who were there, because I know that the best strategies for Boojins are out there. People know what they are. So maybe Boojins aren't going to be good until Mikazuchi comes out. Maybe Boojins won't actually be able to make that much of an impact on the meta. However, what I do know is that Boojin Yamatos have not dropped in price a cent. They are still $30 on eBay. People are really anticipating Mikazuchi and Centipede, and I guess Kagutsuchi or whatever, but it's really going to be Mikazuchi that makes the difference for Boojins. The other thing that I think is actually going to be an even more important card this format than it was last format is Crimson Blader. Crimson Blader had a big impact last format. If you put Crimson Blader on the board against Dragons and you successfully used its effect, you basically won the game. But it was less common that people brought it out. They tended to sit on their main strategies instead of going for that card. But with things like Dragon Rulers and Mermails this format, and especially Dragoonides, Crimson Blader is going to be easier to bring out than ever in the builds that people are using, and it's going to be more important. People are going to be doing significantly less exceasing with things like Dragon Rulers, which means they're going to be doing a lot less Dragasacking, and not to mention the fact that we now have Xyz Encore, which for a deck that can crank out level 8 synchros the way that Dragoonides can, it actually makes Dragasac a totally non-issue when it comes to taking things down with Crimson Blader. So Crimson Blader could be amazing, this format. I think that it will be a crucial card, and really, in this format, it's the only way that you can really side against Mermails, or that you can really play an anti-meta strategy against Mermails. Of course, you have Mind Drain, and of course, you have Abyss Dweller. However, those are both things that can be taken down. Can be taken down by one card that Mermails run frequently. Each of them has their various one card. For instance, Abyss Dweller, all you really have to do is summon a Megalo and run over it, or summon a Tidal and run over it. With Mind Drain, all they have to do is hit that MST button. They don't have to worry about macro. They don't have to worry about D-Fissure or Soul Drain. So really, Crimson Blader is the best way to fight against Mermails, and the decks that can make that are obviously other Mermail decks. Dragoonides are going to really be able to combat Mermails in that way. And I think that if you want to bring in a rogue deck this format, really one that can make Crimson Blader is going to be in good shape. And of course, I'm biased because I really like Thunder Family, but I think that it really can be a good deck, particularly since, once again, it can run Gozen Match, and it can run Imperial Iron Wall. If you do it right, you can even run Mind Drain in that deck if you really want. So that is my main response to YCS Toronto. As far as Market Watch, I'd say that it's going to make Fire Fist probably drop a little bit in price. Prophecy is going to see a little bit more of a surge in price than we expected it to, since these two Prophecy decks made it, and it basically confirmed the hype that was already there. But as far as Market Watch in general, I'll probably get to that in another video, because I think that looking at the releases coming out in Shadow Spectres is much more important to the market than looking at YCS Toronto. So that's kind of my response to YCS Toronto. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know. Hit that thumbs up button. I'm not going to mess this up this time. So if you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why. And then hit that subscribe button for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos, including my Market Watch analysis for the fall format. So stick around, guys. Anyway, thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.